Hello and welcome aboard for the first episode of the Smoke Show. Today we're going to be featuring Azuma. You know, we got the Azur lane wave and she just came back in for free XP, so let's have a look-see, shall we? So this build is, I'm going to feature two different kinds. The Mikawa build, which is going to feature more concealment, and then the Yamamoto build, which he is going to feature more like kiting and range, dispersion. The big difference between the two different builds is the Mikawa build is going to be more like hit and run, positional advantage, and it comes with the perks of really good concealment and a 38 knot top speed. But the second, the much longer range, I think just short of 19 or over 19 kilometers, but you're kind of stuck in that 33 knot area and that 10-3 kilometer concealment. Anyway, we can pop into the numbers. She has pretty good base HP with 52.5 and really good EHP with the heals included at somewhere around 86,000 EHP stock, which is amongst the best of all the cruisers in the tier, which is really saying something. Azuma gets a third stock heal. Her gunnery platform is the single most advantageous thing on the ship, in my opinion. While her guns are lacking in the reload for sure, they're very punchy, and they have pretty good dispersion and pen. AA is quite good, and we talked about the maneuverability and the top speed, but she is rather clunky. Do realize she is a rather large cruiser. And then, of course, with the Mikawa build, like I said, that 9.9 kilometer concealment really lets you sneak up quite close considering what you're packing for the punch. Now, the big thing here is going to be Ingenious for the skill choice, and then Velocious and flank speed there to help boost that top speed, and then steer clear down at the bottom and fully pack to help buff up your healing capacity. Yamamoto, obviously, we're all going to be focused right on all those gun skills, and then fully packs down the bottom to help buff up that wonderful EHP. Now, the new Azuma, she is very much like Yamamoto, but her third and fourth skill rows are kind of different. I don't usually run her fourth row perk, but other than that, she's pretty okay. Now let's talk about the Azuma's armor, if we can say such a thing. She's covered in 27 mil plating, which is going to help pretty much only against 380s or smaller, which is just not that much in the population. You don't really have much of an armor belt, and you do see there that giant floaty citadel. It's just saying shoot me, right? But Azuma's kind of cheeky, especially against 380s. Now that 175 plate right there is kind of trollish, where it's so sharply angled and it hovers right in front of that spot right into the Citadel aft bulkhead, and you can kind of troll with it a little bit. But shy of that, you're covered in 27 mil plating, and you have 32 on the nose, and then 32 on the aft decking, and shy of that, yeah, not a whole lot going on here. It is quite easy to kill an Azuma, especially if you catch her broadside, especially if you catch her with anything larger than 380s, which is, like I said, well over more than half the battleships in the tier. And then you have legendary tier, and the only one of those that has a 406 is the Montana. Everybody else can overmatch you and just send you right back. Anyway, let's dive into some of the playstyles, and enough ranting and raving about how hideous this armor scheme really is. With that Mikawa build, timing and reading the minimap is super important. You have to kind of get an idea of who is going on and what's going on around you. One false step is going to cost. And another second further consideration is that Azuma doesn't fire off a lot of shells. She fires off the quality salvos. And one of the reasons why I had to highlight this clip is not because it's like, oh my god tier, 5 kills or whatever. It's good fundamental play. And when we wait for that nice cheeky inside 12 kilometer shot, we were rewarded with a beautiful 14k salvo. And this is kind of the rhyme and reason to this build, is kind of ducking in and out of island cover and being cheeky with your concealment and your protection, and then laying down that hammer with those 305s when you can. Your gunnery platform is exemplary for slapping just about anything you can get your hands on. And you'll see, like, in pretty short order, I can make quick work of most things when I'm allowed to slap it for 8, 10, 12, 14,000. Now, the reload, yeah. I kind of agree with a lot of the flack that it needs a little bit of love, but on the same token, we did just witness what Alaska did to Tier 7 in the Legendary tier, so I'd kind of be a little skeptical there, but that's just me. Let's flash forward. Now this is when this whole hit and run play style is going to come to a halt, because you are going to just go somewhere. You can't always run around really fast, ducking between islands and then not wind up going anywhere on the map. So the trick here is knowing when to switch off of that really punchy AP and then switch over to your really punchy HE, and knowing when you have to spin and get your bow covered. Your best armor there is that 175 plate and the face of your turrets. So it's more not if you will be citadeled, but when, and act appropriately with this information. If you can play angles to your advantage, like I take that hit here, but then I'm allowed to set up proper angles, which then will not allow me to be citadeled. That's kind of a big, worthwhile argument most captains should have in their head. Like, when on Azuma's hit and run do I have to turn around and kite so I don't get smacked by something, right? And if I had waited any longer, that Bismarck would have come over and said hi. And yeah, 380s on a broadside with 27 mil plating, you're not gonna stop a whole lot unless you're very sharply angled. 406, as I've said, 406 is gonna overmatch. So knowing when to angle and knowing when to choose your quality shots and being an extremely selfish teammate, that is how Azuma works. And when she does all of these things, she's allowed to pick and choose her engagement. She's kind of allowed to sacrifice her team's HP in the favor of keeping her gunnery in the game. Azuma can slap, and she can be quite scary in that sense and should not be disregarded. Like, I wonder how many people watching that clip were like, oh man, an Azuma versus Bismarck, and then Azuma just slaps the Bismarck for 15k. And now the Bismarck's return salvo just ricocheted off the Azuma spell because of angle. Position is everything in this ship. Angle is so important. Now, the flip side of this is going to be how to kite. Now, the first check you should be doing when you're setting up a kite is making sure that your armor is able to either at least ricochet or protect yourself so that kiting is not futile. Otherwise, you should be running away and not returning fire. But that's a different kind of argument for a different kind of day. Now, Azuma's magic number here is 380. 380, 380, 380. If you see 406s, you need to hide because 406s can ignore your armor. 380 does not. So when you see that all of these targets around here are 380 and smaller, it's game on. I can sit there and set them on fire. I can taunt them. I can dive in and out of concealment. I want to be the bait. I want to set the trap. I want them to chase me because I know that if I play the angle game and I play smart and I taunt them it's going to be pretty obnoxious for them to actually try to land a real citadel on me. Now, some of them might hit me and land some damage, but most of the time you're going to see what happened there. It's just going to be ricochets and over penetrations, and you will start to be able to heal back a lot of that, especially with your somewhat juicy heals that you have on Azuma. Now, they're not the creme de la creme that you'd find on the Royal Navy, but for a cruiser, they're not bad. And it's just more of this taunting, right? And now that I've set the trap and I've lured these 4 ships down to chase me, they're realizing that at some point here, they have to engage the center of the map, that chasing me is kind of not important. I'm not important. Look at where I am. I'm on the 1 line. How influential can I be? But that's kind of the trick with Azuma here, is now that they realize that they have to engage the center of the map, Azuma is at a point where she's taking these cheeky, uncontested salvos right into the thick of their armor with her big, punchy guns. And this is just exactly what Azuma loves to do best. And that's the next move with kiting, is, being that selfish teammate where you were drawing the fire, you baited the trap, you set the trap, and now it's time to spring the trap, and here you are. Now's your ability to return the favor and start dishing out some pretty big damage numbers. Now, you see probably in the last 10 minutes or so of in-game time on this match that my damage numbers were quite muted when I was kiting. But now that I'm allowed to start teeing off, my damage number is going to start ticking up. And that's kind of the precipice of Azuma, is that as a kiter, she can do it, but it's more this hit and run, flank support-esque kind of play style, where Azuma kind of leaves a more productive mark on the battle. And your teammates will thank you for it, and your stats will definitely thank you for it. Although sometimes your dispersion, quite frankly, can be a little head-scratchy. Azuma, she means well, and she can land those shots. This ship is difficult. I'm not going to lie to you guys. She's not easy to play. It takes a fair amount of experience and knowledge and know-how to make this ship work. And a lot of that is much more on how the enemy engages you than you are engaging the enemy. And there's only so much time that you have to prepare for things. Right now, I got this whole hit and run thing that's about to flip over to a brawl with a Scharnhorst just because I slap him once. And the end result of that is that I can either turn right now into torpedoes, or I can wait and turn right now and get citadeled. And there is no choice in between, unfortunately. And that's kind of how this situation turns out. I could either stay bow in, or I could make a move, or I could turn tight, but everything that you do has consequences in the ship, and ultimately you may not have the ability to answer the call that is presented to you. Now, Scharnhorst, she cannot overmatch me with her 283s, so if I stay bow in, I'm pretty good. But she does have torpedoes, she does have secondaries. Her secondaries can pen me, and her torpedoes obviously can ruin your day. And what's worse is, while you are bow into one target, you are unable to angle against another. And that's kind of one of the things that can really make Azuma suffer. Alright, now we've beaten the Mikawa build to a pulp, I feel like. So let's why don't we start talking about Yamamoto and the range build. Even in the range build, when I'm sitting in the back, I usually don't fire off a whole lot of HE. It's just 1 or 2 salvos to either catch a permafire or start a couple of permafires to break something, or whatnot. And the real reason is because Azuma, it's just not how Azuma's played. If you're looking for a fire starter or a high HE damage ship, there are just so many better options, specifically in the IJN. You got Suzuya, you have Atago, and both of them are quite successful in this endeavor and are a lot more flexible options, where Azuma tends to lean much more on the Amato side of things. She really is very much like a baby Amato in a lot of aspects. She shares very similar play styles, where the Amato has the sleeper and the creeper, which is kind of a little bit different than a sniper and a brawler, but kind of the same concept. Where Azuma does more or less the same stuff, where it's just more hit and runny than creeping up on things, where Yamato comes in and then just absolutely lays down the hammer and you're dead. Azuma doesn't have that much power, which tends to help and kind of lend credence to the whole sleeper side of things, where those two roles are quite similar. And if you've been watching the background here, I've just been absolutely slapping the Bismarck and the Turpits here, and I've run up quite a high damage tally in a fairly short order. I mean, are they shooting at me? Yeah, they're taking occasional pot shots, but they're also pretty preoccupied with my teammates. And this has really been allowing me to sink my teeth into them until it's to a point where it's really kind of too late for them. Two 15k salvos is 30k, and that's about half their HP. And when you start talking about a choice permafire, like I said on that Bismarck, and then followed it up with a 15k salvo on a permafire, it adds up very quickly. And then before you know it, you wind up just absolutely laying down the law for some of these targets that just really should have been paying attention to the threat that was you all along, but had, and maybe rightfully so, other priorities to focus on. And that's the selfishness and the opportunism that Azuma capitalizes on. And now, as you're going to see when we have to kind of venture into the unknown, Azuma on her own, kind of squishy. It's a ship that's very easy to kill when she does not have the ability to meticulously plan out and coordinate her optimal attack. And when she's not in control of the situation, she can get punished very easily. And so now we're on a hunt to find and kill something in the next minute here to hopefully try and salvage this win. And here we are, a Nelson. Now this is how scary 406 is in the Azuma. So we're going to fire off here, and Nelson is herself quite frail, but her 406 can overmatch you. And while I Citadel her, she is going to return the favor. And there's just absolutely nothing I can do to stop it just as time runs out. So we're pretty much just anxiously waiting for her to reload and hoping that I can fire off just one more salvo into her and then hopefully Citadel her and kill her before the inevitable. And nope, just short, no Citadels, but quite a punchy salvo. And then here comes the goods right through the bow. Ouch. I don't think anything was actually a Citadel in there, but yeah, bye-bye HP. Here we are in shards and spawned on the wrong spot before I even have time to turn around. Yeah, this is how frail this ship is. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe for more. Stay up with all the new stuff, and I hope to see you next time.